Urban Renewal Agency meeting together. It's January 28th and it's 5 o'clock. Could we have roll call, please, Kathy?
Diane Coos.
Here.
Judy Casper.
Here.
Dick Anderson.
Yes.
Mitch Parsons.
Here.
Deanna Hinton.
Here.
Rick Mark.
I'm here.
Riley Hoagland.
Here.
And we have on the agenda comments from citizens present. Anybody wishing to speak? Give Allison a minute to run. Nothing? Thank you. The next are minutes. We have no minutes in this packet, so we'll move on to presentations. And we don't have any listed. Moving right ahead to public hearings, which we have none. And so we move right down to special order of business, which number 1 is election of an agency chair and vice chair. And I would just like to let you know what that is. The chair and vice chair of the agency have been elected annually by the agency from among the agency members at the first regular meeting of the agency each year, and shall hold the office for 1 year or until their successors are elected. I will open nominations for chair. Are there any nominations?
Ms. Hinton,
Yes.
I'd like to nominate you as chair for the Urban Renewal Agency.
Second.
Thank you.
Madam
Okay.
Chair, I'd move to close the nominations.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor for nominating myself, Deanna Hinton, as chair of the Urban?
Probably the, no,
Clo-
for the
Oh,
close
close.
the nomination.
I was going to do it right this year. I blew that resolution. Okay. All in favor of closing the nominations?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the nominations are closed. All in favor of myself, Deanna Hinton, for chair for the Urban Renewal Agency?
Madam Chair, if we can, before we vote, could we just ask the recorder, is that, this is enough of a public vote? For this election, they have to be non-secret ballots? So,
No, yes, you can have the public vote. We
So-
just need to affirm the vote.
so
for the
voice
chair.
vote is okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I guess you're stuck with me for another year. All right, now we need a vice chair. So I'd like to open the nominations for vice chair.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I'd like to nominate Rick Mark for Vice Chair.
thank you.
Second.
Madam Chair, I'd move to close the nominations.
Second, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Let me keep up with you just a minute. Okay, there's a motion and a second to close nominations. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, nominations are closed. We have a nomination on the floor, which is Rick Mark for vice chair. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good thing you're sitting right next to me. You can keep me in line. Thank you very much. Okay, the next thing on our agenda is an update on the Economic Development Toolbox, and the downtown manager in particular.
Evening, and welcome new agency members. Okay, so just a quick introduction, because I want to make sure to give the time to the Bay Area Merchants Association. But they are here to provide an update on their activities, and there was an update that was provided as part of your packet. It's been not quite a year since they've, oh no, it has been a year and a half about since they did their last update. And the downtown manager is funded through an agency economic development grant. And BAMA promotes and encourages economic prosperity and growth by supporting local businesses, community nonprofits, promoting tourism, and preserving the unique character of the Siletz Bay area. They currently have about 30 business members and a few individual members. This tool was created, I think it was 2014, and it was to fund a downtown manager position for a 2-year pilot project. And the downtown manager would work closely with established merchant associations, businesses in other historic business districts, the Visitor Convention Bureau, and regional economic development agencies and the Urban Renewal Agency. So their activities are numerous, and although the funding has not been expended within 2 years, we have just kind of kept moving the same amount of money, which was capped at 2 years at $28,000, forward, because they had, once the tool was created, it took them a while to advertise and interview and get someone on board. So if you have any questions about the program, I'm happy to answer those. Otherwise, I'd like to just pass the time to them. Questions?
Any questions of anyone? Yes.
The $28,000, was that per year or for the 2 years?
$28,000 per year. Mm-hmm.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
Madam Chairman, members of the Urban Renewal Agency, thank you for the time this afternoon to speak to you. I'm Bob Gibson. I'm the immediate past president of the Bay Area Merchants Association. We just had an election, and Barbara John, who is here, is our new president, and Bill John is also here. He's on the board, and let's see. Our past downtown manager, Susan Walke, is here, and our new executive director, Shelley Stewart, is also here. As Allison said, we received the grant from the city in 2014. It did take some time to go through the selection process. As the announcement was made, and we went through the interview process. The applicants just didn't meet what we felt like that we needed to get the most out of the grant that the city had provided. So we waited, and we went out. We advertised again, and that's when Susan Walke was hired. In an effort to get the most out of that $28,000, we also we adjusted the compensation and reduced the hours so that we could have a quality person for the accomplishing the tasks and the goals that we had set forth. And that's, I say this trying to explain why it's taken us more than 2 years to use the money that we were provided. We've tried to use it as judiciously as we could. The memorandum that you've received as an update talks about it itemizes the events that we're involved with. It seems that the Bay Area Merchants Association, historically, of course, we've done the Sandcastle contest. In past years, we've done the Christmas on 51st Street, and we have a car show that we're involved with, and this year we started the Haunted Tap Ghost Tours. I must tell you that when that first started, I thought, how is that going to work? And it went right out of the ballpark. It was an incredible success. The tours were full, and it seems to really be hitting a population and a group that travels to go to those sorts of things and accomplishes the idea of putting people in Lincoln City. Besides the events that we work with, the other major goal that we have, or the major emphasis, is to be a voice for the business community. In that role, we've participated in some of the city visioning projects that have gone on and that have happened over the last couple of years. And we've also, we've worked with various individuals as far as the homeless issue. Of course, that impacts the business community in the Taft area, and we've tried to be good partners with the folks that are working on that and be able to take comments both from the business community and then pass those on to folks that actually are stakeholders in those issues. We have, at one of our general membership meetings, we had the chief of police there to speak about that and to deal with some of the issues that are actually happening. So there's multiple focuses. I think that going forward, we've taken care of some of the administrative kinds of things and putting some of the systems and processes in place to make it a straightforward organization. And I think that going forward now for the next period of time, we'll be able to get involved with building up the value for our individual members. And right now we have about 31 members. It's just our membership goes on the calendar year, so we've just sent out the the invoices for new members. So that's kind of where we're at. I believe that I brought goals and objectives that we've worked on. I'm not sure if you've received those already this evening, but they will be available. And that's we developed a mission statement and a vision statement, and basically, just to paraphrase, it's to be a voice for the business community in the Taft area, and take advantage of the unique geographic area that we're in, and be a voice for the businesses down there. Just a bit of history. The Bay Area Merchants Association has been around since the early 60s. Initially was started by Roger Mills and Eleanor Kramer, and that got it started. So it's got a long history and tradition in our community.
Any questions for Bob? Or about Bama?
I would just close by saying thank you for your support, and we look forward to being a partner.
Madam Chair? Bob, I was involved in 2014 when this came about, and having these documents helped. I struggled as I was prepping for this meeting, whether at that time we approved a 2-year pilot program or we approved $1, which was prominent. And I'm thinking we approved a 2-year program, and it reaffirms, because when we started it in 2014, we knew it took you a while to hire. So my calculations would say that there's been a manager in place for 2 years, 24 months, 17 and 18 years. We also struggled, the agency struggled at that time of how to evaluate this. And the easiest was, again, in the wording, was the pilot would go away and the district itself would decide whether it wanted to fund itself. So, and that got us off the hook from having to make evaluations, as you've just given us, whether those are good, bad, or indifferent. Sure. So can you help me? I think what you're asking for is there's some money left in the kitty for whatever reason, and you're asking to push that forward and not add to it, or just push it forward?
Push it forward.
So, and how much money is that?
I believe that we have something just less than $28,000. We've used about half of the total. is where
So-
we're at.
Yeah. What I was trying to think of is my question, Madam Chair, would be, is your business community any closer to supporting the effort by itself today than they were 2 years ago? And why wouldn't you test it today? I.e., what if we come up with a matching program? We'll kick 12,000 across, and you find the other 12 from your business community. I just throw out. So there's a bunch of questions in that statement, and maybe you could help me.
Okay. Well, I really don't have a good response. I don't want to just talk off the cuff. My personal feeling, observation, would be that the businesses, they pay their $65 membership, and certainly that's not going to cover payroll. One of the missions of our executive director at this point is to find alternative funding. One of the ideas that has surfaced over the last couple of years is a special district of some sort where the business would be taxed. And honestly, I have not felt like that's something that we can toss out to the business community with a legitimate feeling that it's going to go anywhere. The small businesses that are members of our organization, I think if we talked about another special taxing district, my feeling is that it probably would not have a really positive outcome. So there may be other funding sources that we can uncover that as far as grants and that sort of thing. I don't particularly like the idea of compensation and operating fees using soft money, but it may be an alternative.
Madam Chair, I guess the whole idea, and history is only so good, but the whole idea, as I recall, was to, because this agency debated whether to do it at all, and there was a heavy question on this BAMA organization versus the chamber, since the chamber covers it all. So there was a big debate. And again, I'm going from recollection, was the whole concept was needed a leader of the band in Bama, in the Taft area, and 2 years was plenty of time to prove to the merchants that with attention, their revenues would increase. So what I'm struggling with is $28,000 from today, forget the time, theoretically. If the merchants are going to be not willing to fund themselves, to ongoing, I'm not hearing a glimmer at the end of the tunnel. So I'm really questioning, why at all then, and why wouldn't, if it's loose money, would kick it to the chamber, who covers the whole city. So I'm caught up with, and it kind of drives me back to, we had I thought a 2-year deal, not a money deal. The money, we were able to fund it and glad to do it, but it was more a 2-year pilot. So.
Right. My understanding was the dollar amount, and that we could work, as long as we stayed within that dollar amount, that we could, because we could go ahead and push that forward. But
yeah, I can see where you'd get that, but
I may have been in error on that. But that was truly an active decision that the board made to go ahead and try to extend it out that way and manage the funds that we had. Yeah.
Would it be okay if I spoke as well? Hi.
Sure.
Everyone. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. I'm Shelley Stewart, and I was hired maybe 3 weeks ago to be the new director of the Bay Area Merchants Association. And so I have been so busy trying to get a handle on everything. And one of the board was very clear with me when they hired me that we had a set amount of funding and a set amount of time. And beyond that, we would need to figure out how to sustain the organization going forward. So I've been on board for 3 weeks, and I spent all last week in training. I attended 2 different conferences. One was a workshop in Salem that was the Oregon Main Street Revitalization Grant, learning all about how to apply for something like that. And it really applies to the historic Taft and historic Nelscott areas, I think, because we learned all about the criteria and all about the tremendous work that goes into a revitalization project. And I think a lot of the places, the buildings, the vacant areas in Taft are really ripe for something like that. But it requires time, and it requires building relationships with property owners and business owners to coax that along to get, first make them aware of it and then make them see the advantages of doing something like that. So I was really excited about that workshop. The other conference that I attended was the Oregon Destination Marketing Organization, and that was a 2-day conference with tons of information that I'm soaking in, but perhaps the most relevant to this discussion was a case study about the tourism improvement districts, and it showcased 3 organizations and the kind of how to go about doing it, pitfalls, how much time it takes to implement a tourism improvement district, which I think is what the mayor is talking about. And it talked about small communities and all the way up to Travel Oregon implementing something like that. And they stressed really the amount of community consensus building time that something like that takes. Frankly, much more than 2 years. But I think that, you know, with the work that we've been able to do so far and a little bit of extra time, we really can build something very strong in the South Lincoln City area for our businesses.
Are there any other comments or questions? I just have a question. So you have this bit of money left over that you haven't expended. There's the idea of a match grant, which we could explore for the future, I think. And because that was a 2-year grant and now it's been, what, 4 years? I'm just curious, how are we going to add an end date to this grant? You have something to say?
Well, what answer I heard was when the 28,000 or whatever's left runs out is the end date.
No dates attributed to the.
Right, right? Isn't that what we're?
Okay, I just want to.
And no new money added. It's just a rollover.
Just want to be clear about that.
Yeah.
And in the interim, then maybe between now and next year, 6 months, or whenever you get some ideas, maybe you could come back and let us know how you can be funded in the future. And I'd like to explore the matching grant idea.
Yeah, yeah. I would not see the matching
Not now,
for this.
no.
Yeah, base.
In the future.
But I think the question I'll have certainly is, you know, how willing are the merchants to help themselves, and because we don't do this for the chamber. And, you know, once we start, that was the fear we all had 4 years ago, was every area of town, every Pearl would be saying, and so we were willing, as a pilot, to give it a jump start and, you know, show that with some attention that business could increase, and thus the benefactors themselves would be willing to pay. So,
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Bob, do you know about how many members are potentially available for BAMA? You said there's about 31 members now.
Well,
Is that 2/3, 3/4, half? Or you don't know?
I think that we're probably, and this is sort of off the cuff, I don't have an inventory in front of me, but we're probably somewhere around half of the merchants in that area. But the reason I'm a little bit waffling on that is that we have members from throughout town. And so, interestingly enough, we have members that don't have a business in the Taft area. And so there's interest outside of that. And it's the question that's been brought up as far as how do we do the dance with the Chamber of Commerce and how do we relate to the Chamber of Commerce. We've had contact communication certainly with the chamber, and we've had a meeting where we can share ideas and work in concert. And it's because it's a question that I think everybody has, is what's the difference? What draws the distinction between those two? So I understand that.
And then perhaps you might have some businesses who are not involved in either one and may not be involved in
Yes.
any of them?
Yes. And yes.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
Well, Madam Chairman, I wonder if someone could just help me out with the history, and I'm wondering why this region of town was able to get urban renewal money and other areas. I mean, are there other areas that aren't as solidified or identifiable? Or
yeah, I'm sure I could, going again from memory, this is the only other area of town that had an association, so a firm organization that was functioning. The other was the chamber. And they were certainly willing to take money as well. And that's why this was called a pilot, not ongoing type thing. And it was intended to be an experiment. Back in 2014, we'd come out of the recession. Taft was definitely slower to rebound. Kind of that argument is they're so far south that, you know, cars don't reach there kind of concept. And so it was a willing move, and, you know, I think a good one at the time to see. And I like the idea of, quite frankly, us not having to worry about the results, you know, to how to evaluate this, that you get to by funding yourself.
Right.
Great. So I think it's time for me to thank you for your update for the year, and I don't think we have any action to take today, but just thank you so much for your report.
Thank you for your support, and we'll be back. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Mrs. Robertson's back again. Next on our agenda is the bid award for the Cutler District Southwest Jetty Avenue alignment. Project that is here forever. So it seems.
Okay, so this project, the Southwest Jetty realignment in Cutler City, it was identified during the 2008 Cutler Community Vision and Corridor Plan. And the project includes curb and gutter, pervious concrete sidewalks, New asphalt road, a little over 500 square yards. Sorry, I should have had the linear feet there. And some new storm line. The overhead utilities will be undergrounded from Highway 101 down the new street section, and it will increase safety by slowing traffic. It'll create better visibility and a two-way street connection. Right now, the street is one-way going into Cutler City. And it will also complete one of the last sections of the Baywalk project, which will connect Southwest 51st Street in Taft with Cutler City. The Baywalk project was envisioned in the 1999 Taft redevelopment plan to really connect Cutler City with Taft, and we've slowly been working on sections of that. Last year, we built the turnout project called Schooner Point Turnout, and you can see that here on the slide. On the far left, you can see the turnout project that's now constructed, and then the restaurant here. And as you move to the east, or south, as most of us always think it's south, even though it is technically east, you can see where the crab pot has been rebuilt, and that street will basically turn into a 90-degree angle to the highway, so perpendicular to the highway. And I can zoom in a little bit here. So you can see it'll have sidewalk on both sides. It'll have a stormwater filtration to process the stormwater, and then again it'll be undergrounded utilities from the highway along the new street section. It'll also build sidewalk along the highway up to the driveway, the current driveway of the Bay House right now. And then the Bay House would be responsible to do improvements across their driveway and in front of their restaurant. So staff would recommend the construction contract be awarded to Pleasant Hill Development in the amount of $169,698.99 with a contingency of 10% for a total contract award of $186,668.99. Are there any questions on the project or on the bid process?
Yes.
I just got one because I wasn't here for all the previous stuff. Sure. What's the main reason for doing this? Why are we?
To improve safety and connectivity. Part of our transportation system plan is to create more alternate routes off of the highway. Having people be able to get in and out of a community, to have the two-way traffic is generally preferable. And it also, I didn't put this in the staff report just because it is in the past material, but it actually has brought together the properties. When we do the vacation of the old street and we relocate the new street, it will create a larger contiguous ownership of property, which will help with redevelopment. As I'm sure we're all aware, in general in Lincoln City we have smaller parcels, and so it's kind of a challenge to do redevelopment or just construction in general until you can actually get enough property to address parking and other things. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Are there any other questions of staff? Mr. Anderson?
Madam Chair, can you share with us anything about Pleasant Hill development? They seem to be significantly lower, which is nice, but some of the other names I recognize. So who are these folks, and have we dealt with them before?
Sure. We have not worked with them before. I believe they're in Sheridan. This is one of the projects that we are now partnering more with Public Works. So the Urban Renewal Agency has done construction and permitting, and then we do a baton pass to Public Works because they have great engineering staff and they do bidding and construction. So I can tell you from Public Works, they let me know that they have called and spoken with the contractor. They feel the contractor is competent and they've been responsive in communications. And they're comfortable with their price. They realize that they may have left a little money on the table, but they are eager to do the work and do more public projects in this way. Yeah.
Sure. Earlier on, we had when these came with the vacation of the streets, there was discussion or concern around runoff. Mm-hmm. So do you know if there's been any changes to the runoff engineering from, that was quite a while ago and early on, to what the finished bid
Sure.
would entail?
Sure. They did make one change. Our design engineers did create a berm between the pond and the property owner just to the south of the project area. And there was talk about putting in an additional catch basin. And when they looked at the actual storm calculations, they realized that if they put in the storm catch basin, it would actually be lower than the berm, which means that it could overtop the berm if there was extra water. So they felt as though the berm was more than sufficient to address the stormwater. So that was the only change that they had made.
Thank you.
I had, this might sound like a silly question, but I think the earlier proposal I saw identified this perpendicular street to Highway 101 as 61st Street. Are we calling it Jetty, or are we going to call it 61st?
That's a great question. We actually had an adjacent property owner send an email and say, hey, wait a second, my address is this, and are you sure about this? And so we got together with the planning staff and looked at it again and decided that the correct naming convention should stay as Jetty for emergency location of addresses and stuff like that. So it will not be 61st, it will remain Jetty. Thanks.
Good question. Any other questions?
Just a little comment. I just had a casual conversation with the owner of the Bay House a couple of months ago, and he was delighted that we're going, and I'm sure the Crab Shack fellow is also pleased to see us moving ahead with this.
All right.
So, Madam Chair, if you want to move to, I'd move to approve Resolution UR 219-01.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have to vote
Vote,
by
yeah, voice, or,
Anderson,
roll call.
yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Hinton,
Yes.
Hoagland.
Yes.
Coos.
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
and Parsons.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And Allison Robertson is back again for an update on projects and annual report.
Okay, I'm happy to go into more detail, but just briefly wanted to give you an update on the projects that we completed in 2018 in the annual report. The annual report that's in your packet is kind of blended with city economic development and urban renewal. So if you have questions about what's what, I'm happy to go over that. I wanted to also mention that the urban renewal district, or the area, sometimes we call it an area, was formed in 1988 with a maximum indebtedness. That's one of those urban renewal terms you'll probably hear me mentioning from time to time, of $43 million. The final bond transaction was done in fall of 2017, and those funds are being paid back until the year 2024. So the urban renewal district that we have right now, which is mostly along Highway 101, will basically exist until we pay that last bond back in 2024. Funds were allocated to complete projects identified in the 2008 Cutler Community Vision and Corridor Plan, also North End or Roads End projects, such as the 50th Street Pump Station and the D-Lake Utility Undergrounding Project, with any residual funds planned for the agency's economic development toolbox. So I did mention there's a list here, and we also have a report online, or you're welcome to stop by the office if you're curious about the 27 years of accomplishments for urban renewal and where all those millions of dollars went in our community. We do have some remaining capital projects, which include, as you all just passed, the construction award for the Southwest Jetty Realignment Project in Cutler City. There's one additional sidewalk project to connect the two turnouts on Highway 101. And we're calling that the Siletz Baywalk Sidewalk. So it's just a small section of sidewalk, but pretty important for people walking in that area. And that one, we have about 10% design, and we'll be picking up the pace on design sometime this year. We're waiting for a couple of things from ODOT to happen, and then we hope that we'll have their support in making some highway improvements in that section so that we can make sure the sidewalk will be stabilized in the long term. The third project that we have on the list is actually a project that we have talked about. When we built the Schooner Point Turnout project, we talked about how essential it is for people to safely be able to access the bay. And, you know, there's landscaped area that's not developed. And at some point in time, it would be nice to have a connection, whether it be the cost borne by the city or the Urban Renewal Agency. We wanted to just keep that in there as a placeholder because there was interest in having the connection from that turnout down to the bay. There are not any funds allocated for that project, and we don't have a concept, but we kind of know what would happen there. Are there any questions on the projects or update?
Yeah, the Color City Bay access, it mentions the Southwest Galley pedestrian access. Where is that? Is that down by 68th, or is that over by 62nd?
Galley is near the pump station. So
Right.
as you go into Cutler City, if you stay to the right.
I can throw a stone from my house and hit it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, there's just a little pedestrian access there, and then piling that are on the bay.
Like, so it's on the 62nd Street side?
Yes.
Right, where the pump station is?
Yes.
Incidentally, someone during my campaigning, a neighbor complained that the Josephine Young Park, I don't know if that's probably city, so maybe I shouldn't even talk about it. It's really hard to get a kayak down into the bay, she said, now, because of the way the park was redesigned. So that might be something you want to keep in mind.
Yes, kayak access has been in our minds at a few different project locations. It's just a matter of funding and priorities, and I'm hoping that we can maybe encourage some of our developers who might be building projects along the waterfront to include something there. Not at this location, but just somewhere in town, and see how that goes.
Any other questions? Are you, will you be covering the goals, the priorities? Or is that?
Oh, I hadn't planned to do that. This was kind of a recap, but I'm happy to go over
Okay.
those if you like.
I was just curious, are these priorities for staff?
Yes.
Because I didn't recognize them as something that we had
Yes.
done as
they-
an agency, so I was just curious.
Yes, based on the budget and the tasks that I have ongoing, these are the goals that we would like to achieve in 2019.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you for that update. It's appreciated. Okay, economic development,
Yes.
put your other hat on.
Sure. And this is really more focused on the toolbox for urban renewal. I just wanted to kind of give a little background since we're here at the start of the year and talk about economic development for urban renewal, just because we are talking more about economic development, and there's city economic development and urban renewal development, economic development, and they're kind of commingled in the same staff, but staff has been mindful about which budget is funding what and what the projects are. So this is really just an update for you to just kind of let you know where we're at and what is going on. So the background is that the city's efforts in economic development have been primarily marketing through Explore Lincoln City, or our Visitor and Convention Bureau, formerly known as the VCB. The capital public improvements of public works, capital public and private improvements of urban renewal, and the Urban Renewal Agency's property rehabilitation loans, which began in 1999 with a $1 million fund that's revolving for facade improvement loans. And that's 0% interest. We do still have that program available. And then we took that facade improvement loan and realized that that's a great tool, and what other tools can we create in order to make a more well-rounded toolbox. So in 2009, the Urban Renewal Agency added economic development assistance as a new project category for the existing urban renewal district. And I've listed there, it creates business development technical assistance program, recruitment and marketing program, and within the limitations of the agency allows you to partner on workforce housing projects with developers. And then to implement that assistance, in 2011, we came forward with some options for you, which are included in the toolbox that's in the packet. And in addition to the facade improvement loan, you all created the business expansion loan, energy efficiency loan, the local program support grant, and the downtown manager grant, which we just had updated tonight. So I wanted you to know that this spring we'll be getting more into marketing of those tools. We took a little hiatus from talking about them because we had some transition with loan servicing, which took some of last year, a good portion of last year. And we're very excited to be partnering with the Oregon Cascades West Council of Governments. And they have their own small business lending, and they are very good at doing all that financial stuff that go underwriting and stuff like that we don't do and we need expertise to do. And so they've been a great partner. We get quarterly reports. We know when deposits are made. It's kind of fabulous. So staff has less anxiety about that. And so in the coming months, we'll bring the toolbox back to you for consideration of some other tools and ideas. And then we would also be looking at creating a city economic development toolbox that can kind of dovetail with the Urban Renewal Loan Fund. Let's see. Property development. As you might recall, Urban Renewal has 4 of those properties that we've made available to developers, and we do have exclusive negotiating agreements with those developers. And so I'm hoping that by June 30th, we'll have at least one of those developers or properties in development agreement. And development agreement process will be public, and it'll come before you, and the developers will be here, and so I think that'll be pretty exciting.
Can't wait.
Me neither.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question?
Certainly.
On the property development, we have a Southwest 51st Street. It says it's a public parking lot right now. Is that the one between 50th and 51st Street?
It is. It's at the west end of 51st. So there are 2 public parking lots. It's kind of an unofficial parking lot. It was left over as asphalt from a previous restaurant that was there. And we put in a little asphalt and striping and public.
We do maintain it, and
we
there's
do
a sign that
maintain
says
it.
it's public.
Yes. Uh-huh.
I'm asking because of what we're being asked to vote on next meeting. So.
Yes. That is the site that would go for redevelopment. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else?
Other questions?
Any other questions?
Sounds good.
Thank you so very much.
Thank
I'm
you.
excited for when you bring things forward to us again. All right, the next thing on our agenda is appointment of Urban Renewal Agency Loan Grant Committee. This committee doesn't meet very often, but it's an important committee to the urban renewal, and it provides me prerogative to appoint those people with your approval. And so I would like to appoint Member Dick Anderson and Member Diane Coos to this committee. Kathy, need a consensus, or do we need to vote on this? Voice vote?
In the past, I think we've just had nominations and done it that way.
I believe I just am able to appoint, and I just need to get the approval of the agency. So may I have your approval, please, with an aye or a nay? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Thank you very much. And resolutions, we've had one and we've already dealt with it. We have no actions based on executive session or work session. And now it's time for agency member comments. Do any of you have any comments you'd like to close with? Gone?
I just want to thank staff for their work. Thank you.
Okay, we are adjourned at 5:50.
Mics are off.